In 1909, in the city of Belfast, Ireland shrouded in fog, a shipyard was building the largest ship in history, the RMS Titanic. Thousands of workers labored day and night. The clanging sound of riveting hammers, sparks from welding torches, and the roar of massive cranes filled the air. The towering skeleton of iron was slowly taking shape. No one could have imagined this ship would one day become a legend. The owners of the White Star Line proudly declared, "It is unsinkable," because it was the strongest, most modern ship ever built by man. They named it Titanic, meaning a giant. On May 31st, 1911, today was a day of celebration for Belfast. The Titanic was being launched into the water for the first time. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered on the banks of the river. Lagan, everyone watched in awe. The massive iron giant slowly slid down the slipway into the water. Huge waves crashed around it. Women threw white flowers. Men removed their hats in respect. Paint was being applied to its hull. Everyone said, "This is the king of the seas. It will never lose. It will never sink." This ship is a symbol of human triumph. In 1912, after 2 years of hard work, the Titanic was finally complete. It was now fully ready to sail the ocean. This was not just a ship, it was a floating, luxurious city. Inside it had a swimming pool, a Turkish bath, a gymnasium, a library, a squash court, and elegant restaurants. First class had suites adorned with gold and handcrafted furniture. The red flag of the White Star Line flew high. Captain Edward Smith said, "This is the safest and most luxurious ship in the world. It has 16 watertight compartments." On Wednesday, April 10th, 1912, at the port of Southampton, England, today the Titanic would begin its maiden and final voyage to New York. Thousands of passengers and their families were on the deck. Wealthy American businessmen like John Jacob Astor in first class, teachers and doctors in second class, and poor immigrant families from Ireland and Italy in third class. Everyone was sailing to America with dreams of a new life. Everyone was smiling, taking pictures, waving goodbye. No one knew this journey would be their last. Stepping inside the Titanic felt like entering a royal palace, especially the famous grand staircase of first class. The walls were adorned with gold carvings and iron, railings with floral designs. Sunlight streamed in through a massive glass dome ceiling. Wealthy women walked in expensive silk gowns. Men in fine suits smoked cigars. The cost of a 7-course dinner for one night in the first-class dining saloon was equal to the price of a full ticket to America for an entire third-class family. But down below in third class, life was completely different. There was no gold, no expensive chandeliers, only sturdy wooden bunks and simple food. But there was heart, there was laughter. Poor families from Ireland, Italy and Sweden sat together, singing and dancing. Children ran through the narrow corridors. They were going to America to build new homes, find new jobs and start a new life. Their eyes held only dreams and hope for the future. On the highest deck, on the command bridge, stood Captain Edward Smith. He was one of the most experienced and respected captains at sea. This was to be his final voyage before retirement. Beside him, First Officer Murdoch and Second Officer Lightoller peered through binoculars at the calm Atlantic Ocean ahead. Everyone was calm, at ease, because there were no waves, no storms, no danger ahead. Everyone said the voyage would end very smoothly and easily. The Titanic was now sailing at full speed, 22 knots, which was close to its maximum speed. Black smoke billowed from its 4 massive funnels. The ship's huge propellers cut through the water, leaving a trail of white foam. First-class passengers stood on the deck, enjoying the salty sea breeze. The sun was shining. Everyone said, "There is no more beautiful or comfortable journey than this." But no one could see the dark, ice-filled unknown danger ahead. Suddenly, a paper message arrived in the wireless room. It was a warning sent from another ship, the SS Mesaba. It read in large letters, "Caution. Large icebergs and pack ice reported between 42 degrees north and 41 degrees west. Operator Jack." Phillips took the paper to Captain Smith's chart room table, but the captain was busy with other matters at the time. He simply said, "All right." Everyone thought, the Titanic fears no iceberg. It is invincible. Sunday, April 14th was AM. There was no moon in the sky and few stars. The ocean was as calm as glass, not a single wave. But the air was unnaturally cold. 2 lookouts stood in the crow's nest, 29 meters above the deck. Their names were Fred Fleet and Reginald Lee. They had no binoculars, because they had been lost. Their only job was to stare into the darkness ahead. They did not know that death was only a few minutes away. At 1:40 a.m., suddenly, "Lookout!" Fred Fleet rang the bell and shouted, "Iceberg right ahead! Hard to starboard!" The phone rang on the bridge. First Officer Murdoch quickly ordered, "Harder starboard," and put the engines full reverse. But the 46,000-ton giant could not turn that fast. The massive black iceberg scraped along the starboard side of the ship, from the bow to the stern. The sound was not very loud. Many passengers felt nothing. But below, in the belly of the ship, something terrible had happened. The sharp ice of the iceberg had popped the rivets on the ship's iron plates. Ice-cold seawater was rapidly flooding into 5 of the watertight compartments. Engineers in the engine room were desperately trying to stop the water and run the pumps, but the water would not stop. Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer, came to see and said, "The ship has about 2 hours and 40 minutes. Captain Smith realized the ship could not be saved. He ordered in a trembling voice, "Women and children to the lifeboats first." Chaos broke out on deck. People were running, crying, praying. But the biggest problem was that there were not enough lifeboats. There were only 20 lifeboats with room for 1,178 people. But there were more than 200 people on the ship. Even with death at the door, some people did not lose their courage or humanity. The Titanic's 8-member band, led by Wallace Hartley, went up on deck. They began to play their violins, cellos, and basses. They played the hymn, "Nearer, My God, to Thee." The passengers listened calmly. The band members knew they would not survive, yet they played on until their very last breath. Monday, April 15th, 2:20 a.m. The Titanic could no longer bear its own weight. With a deafening, ear-splitting sound, the ship broke in half. The stern rose almost 90 degrees straight into the air. In the moonlight, it looked horrifying. Then, in a second, the massive ship plunged into the 12,000-foot deep ocean. All around was silence, only the sound of water. After the ship sank, thousands of people were in the ice-cold Atlantic water. They had few life jackets. It was pitch black all around. All around were screams, cries, and the sounds of death. The water temperature was -2 degrees Celsius. A person could not survive in this water for more than 15 minutes. The people in the lifeboats were too afraid to go back, because if too many people tried to board, the lifeboat would sink too. Around 4 a.m., a light from a ship was seen in the distance. It was the RMS Carpathia. After receiving the Titanic's SOS signal, it had raced 58 miles in 4 hours to reach them. It rescued 705 surviving souls from the lifeboats. The survivors huddled under blankets, shivering from the cold. Their eyes held only grief, terror, and guilt. They had lost their husbands, wives, children, and friends. 3 days later, on April 18th, when the Carpathia docked at Pier 54 in New York, thousands of people were waiting at the dock, but their loved ones did not come. Everyone's face was covered in the shadow of grief. People wore black clothes and black armbands. The newspaper headlines were huge. Titanic sunk, 1,500 dead, worst sea disaster. The whole world cried that day. Mourning was held in America and Britain. After the disaster, the American and British governments formed separate inquiry committees. The main questions were, why did such a large modern ship sink? Why were there so few lifeboats? Why were the iceberg warnings not taken seriously? Why couldn't the Carpathia arrive sooner? Officers and surviving passengers were questioned for hours in the courtroom. After this inquiry, international maritime law was completely changed. Today, in 2026, 114 years later, the Titanic still lies 12,415 feet deep in the Atlantic Ocean. Robot submarine cameras show that the ship is in 2 pieces. It is covered in rust. Bacteria called rusticles have made a home on its iron. Fish have now made their homes there. Expensive teacups, leather shoes and watches from first class lie in the mud. The Titanic is now a seabed grave. It reminds us that no matter how proud humans are, they are very small and weak compared to nature.